So we've all read in Romans 1 where Paul says, "For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse." It's Romans 1:20. So what he's saying there is everything is in an order, which is the O in core facts. It's crazy. It's in an order that is explainable. Now, what do I mean about that, right? We understand that there's order to the design of the universe. Things just didn't happen. And even Richard Dawkins has said, when studying the cosmos, you have to ignore the order to it all, or the appearance of order to it all. Otherwise, you would have to believe in a God. So what we want to do is we really want to look at what's called the teleological argument. It comes from the words telos, it's Greek, which means purpose, and logos, which means the word. Ends or purpose is what telos means, right? And logos is logic, right? We understand that logic means to formulate things in a logical order. So it's the design from order. Despite scientific arguments, or deeply scientific arguments appeal to many modern minds because science is celebrated in the 21st century. So much so that it's almost become a religion. Scientism has become this thing that we celebrate in our world. The teleological arguments seek to demonstrate that the complexity of the universe strongly implicates the existence of a designer. Something that's designed, we understand have a designer. Anthony Flew was a big-time atheist in the 1970s and 80s and 90s, and he debated Christians left and right. One of my first professors that I had for apologetics was Gary Habermas. He had a very famous debate with Anthony Flew that they wrote a book out of. Him and Flew did, and but Anthony Flew, he was a philosopher. Late in his universe, he said, "I now believe that the universe was brought into existence by an infinite intelligence. I believe that this universe's intricate laws manifest what scientists have called the mind of God. I believe that life and reproduction originate in a divine source." Come on. There we go. And that's why I believe this, given that I expounded and defended atheism for more than half a century. The short answer is this. This is the world picture as I see it that has emerged from modern science. So he's saying all of science points to a design, and we know that if there is design, there has to be somebody behind it. A guy named William Paley back in the 17 and 1800s, he wrote a book that's actually on my shelf. I have the first edition of it, where he expounds about a blind watchmaker, or about a watchmaker. It's a watchmaker argument. He says, you're on a deserted island on a beach, and you're sifting your toes through the sand, and you find a watch. And you don't suppose that the atoms just came together and made a watch, because you know what a watch is.
Yeah.
You understand that somebody had to design it and put it together and combine it and make it into its own thing, make it into a watch. Now, imagine that you're a native of that island. You've never seen a watch before in your life. Are you going to pick that watch up, look at it, and go, wow, this is really intricate? It just happened by chance, and throw it away? Probably not, because you're going to understand that, moving parts and the appearance of design means there's a designer, right? when you get into the design argument, a lot of people think that this is, explicitly against evolution, and it's not. It's just meant to say that there's a lot of intricacy in the world. Because of all the intricacy that we see, we understand that there has to be some kind of design behind it. And all this design means that there's got to be a designer.
Yes.
That while people do say this is against evolutionists, there are mountains of materials produced by intelligent design advocates and creationists which assist believers in dealing with this very important matter. Regarding evolution, one guy that I like to look at is Dr. James Tour. James Tour, if he weren't such an outspoken Christian, would probably have won a Nobel Prize for his work in biochemistry at this point. But he denies evolution. He says that time is not evolution's friend, it's actually its enemy. And he goes in great depth and detail that I don't completely understand, so I'm not going to give you his full argument. But he's saying that, if two proteins aren't perfectly aligned and aren't perfectly put together within moments of each other, you're not going to get one actual protein, because a protein is unstable on its own. Goes really in depth on it, and that, it would scatter everything to the winds when it does it, and then it would have to formulate it again, only now it's got to do it twice. And yeah, so like James Tour, right, we see that there's a great deal of design that has to be put into this. Regarding evolution can distract, or, if we talk too much about evolution, it distracts listeners from hearing the actual design argument, which is just that there's a lot of design in the world, right? And that design points to a designer. Even if evolution were to be true, I don't personally believe it is, but even if it was true, right, it doesn't make there less order in the world, right? We still see a whole lot of order, and he even writes, I realize this comes to somewhat of a letdown. Many professional Christian defenders are frustrated by the fact that the evolution debate is a central issue about which outsiders seem to think our discipline focuses. Not everything that we say in apologetics is against evolution, right? And, there are some Christians who refuse to talk about evolution because it's not that big of a deal. If evolution were true, it doesn't disprove anything about God. It doesn't disprove the fact that there has to be a cause to everything that begins to exist, and the universe began to exist. Also, the argument here, this is the formal argument, right? The fine-tuning of the universe is due either to physical necessity, chance, or design. Right? So either it had to be on its own, it just happened just by chance, or it was designed, right? We know that it's not due to physical necessity. The atoms in the universe did not need to come together in this manner. It's just not how it was designed. Not even possible, right? It didn't happen by chance. The chance of it happening is so astronomically small that we can refute chance. So it's not due to physical necessity or chance. Therefore, the fine-tuning of the universe is due to design. Right? Everything is finely tuned, and we know this when we look at space, we look at all of that, right? And the argument is structured in such a way that one must deny the truth of either premise one or premise two if the conclusion's to be denied. They can't just say, no, it's not design. Well, tell me why it is chance or physical necessity, or put a fourth option out there. It says, it should be clear how daunting a task this would be to accomplish by the time the argument's explained in detail. And he says that it's pretty much inescapable. right? If we say physical necessity, right? If somebody says physical necessity, we got to, according to that explanation, the universe had absolutely no chance of not being life permitting. In other words, a theory of everything that Stephen Hawking is searching for will one day be discovered and will explain why the universe could not have existed in any other way. But to say that, right, you're saying science doesn't know yet, but we will know in the future. Well, what is it's like saying, well, I can't explain it, so God did it. It's the same thing. Only they're saying the physical universe will explain it eventually to us. All right. That doesn't work. PCW Davis, who's a British physicist, he said, even if the laws of physics were unique, it doesn't follow that the physical universe itself is unique. The laws of physics must be augmented by cosmic initial conditions. There's nothing in present ideas about the laws of initial conditions remotely to suggest that their consistency with the laws of physics would imply uniqueness. Far from it, it seems then that the physical universe does not have to be the way that it is. It could have been otherwise. So he's saying it's not necessary that it was this way. It could have been otherwise. It could have, something could have taken a microsecond longer to formulate, and it wouldn't be this way. So that tells us that physical necessity doesn't answer the question without going into what's called an argument from ignorance. We don't know yet, but we will one day. Right? So he puts this core moment here. It says, in simpler words, the idea that the universe is so complex because it just had to be that way fails. There's no reason to think that the universe couldn't have been a lot of different ways. So there must be a better reason why the universe seems to be finely tuned for life. And we are talking about the fact that our universe is the only one that has life. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're starting from the God's not possible, so they have to make this logical jump to naturalism. And when they do that, what they're doing is they're discounting anything that could resemble even a designer.
So the designer would be God.
Absolutely, and we're going to get into why that's God. So they try to give these weird explanations for it, but Richard Lewontin, who's another physicist, he says it is not the methods and institutions of science somehow compel us to accept a material explanation of the phenomenal world, but on the contrary, we are forced by our a priori adherence to material causes, right? So that's our beginning explanation, right? To material causes to create an apparatus of investigation and a set of concepts that produce material explanations, no matter how counterintuitive, no matter how mystifying to the uninitiated. Moreover, the materialism is an absolute. We cannot allow a divine foot in the door. Right? They can't allow for a God to get into the door, so they have to come up with very convoluted theories that just don't match reality in any way, shape, or form. And they do this so that they can deny that God even exists. Right? So the chances of the universe being life permitted have been estimated to be 1 in 10 to the 100th power. That's a googolplex. So 1 in 1 divided by 1 with 100 zeros behind it. That's the possibility of the universe being life permitting. Right? the balance between electrons and protons, the accuracy of that is 1 in 10 to the 37th power. That's 1 divided by 1 with 37 zeros behind it. Hugh Ross, who is a Christian physicist, he says, 1 part in 10 to the 37th power is such an incredibly sensitive balance that it is hard to visualize. The following analogy might help. Cover the entirety of North American continent in dimes all the way up to the moon. That's a height of about 239,000 miles. In comparison, the money to pay the U.S. federal government debt would cover 1 square mile less than 2 feet deep with dimes. Right? So that's how much we're looking. He says, next, pile dimes from here to the moon on 1 million other continents the same size as North America. Right? So you're doing this 1 million times. Paint 1 dime red. Mix it into the billion piles of dimes. Blindfold a friend. Ask him to pick out 1 dime. The odds that he will pick the red dime are 1 in 10 to the 37th power. So you've got 10 North Americas, all with dimes stacked from sea level to the moon. You're painting 1 dime red. You blindfold somebody and say, pick the red dime. Their odds of picking the red dime is the same as the odds of just 1 atom being able to stay together by protons and neutrons. That's how crazy it is. And he follows that up and he says, and this is only one of the parameters that is so delicately balanced to allow life to form. That's just one thing. Just to allow life to form. That's not even saying that this is why life formed. Right? So we see by that, what do you think your odds are? Your odds good that you're going to find that red dime on your first pull?
No.
Probably not, right? So
No.
chance, that's chance, and that's just of one of many different finely tuned things in the universe that allows for life to exist. Right? So that's only one of them. There are multiple others, such as the location of sun, or location of the Earth from the sun, how our rotation is, the spinning, the speed at which we spin around on our axis, the fact that our axis is tilted at a certain degree, right? So he says, clearly chance cannot overcome the complexity and specificity of the universe, right? And that's still, we're just talking about one. And when we look at it that way, it makes it almost inconceivable that the universe could randomly result in life-permitting situation. Right? So this leaves only the design option, right? Design's the only means by which the universe could have been produced in such a way that it is ordered and life-permitting. So then you have to show that, okay, well, we can't refute number 2. It's chance, or it had to be that way. So maybe we need to find a 4th option. But the problem is there is no 4th option. It covers them all really well right there, right? And, you know, this choice does seem clear to people who are using their heads instead of using their, hey, I got you, and this is what we're going to use, such as Hawking. So these objections do get a little technical, but just focus on the actual argument, right? And we can come back to some of these objections, right? So the universe, the complexity of the universe can only be explained by one of 3 things. That's either necessity, it had to be that way, chance, it just happened to happen that way, or fine-tuning, right? Or a designer, right? So then they start with this, what if there are numerous other universes? Well, that doesn't change those 3 things, right? there are numerous other universes, would this universe still require fine-tuning based on that? Yes. Still requires fine-tuning. So it's not an issue. He goes through a lot with this because this is the new popular thing. Hawking put it forth, and Dawkins says, our time and space did indeed begin in our Big Bang. Right? So he's giving us that, yes, it began to exist. And we know that all things that begin to exist have a cause. So he's giving us the first one, the C. Right? We understand that there is a cause for the universe. But this was just the latest in a long series of Big Bangs, each one initiated by a big crunch, terminated the previous universe in the series. Nobody understands what goes on in singularities, such as the Big Bang. So it is conceivable that the laws and constants are reset to new values each time. And then he talks about if it's going on forever, like a cosmic accordion, we would have a serial version of the multiverse. So he's trying to posit some new way that, hey, you know, people keep refuting this multiverse thing because it doesn't work. So let me come up with a different kind of multiverse so that maybe that one can work, right? And Anthony Flew again says, some have said the laws of nature are simply accidental results of the way the universe cooled after the Big Bang. But even such accidents can be regarded as secondary manifestations of deeper laws governing the ensemble of the universe, right? So there are laws out there that we still don't understand or still don't know, is what he's saying. So they're, once again, the only way out, what Anthony Flew is saying here, is to say, you know, it's something we don't understand yet. That's all, right? So Flew is once again contradicting exactly what Dawkins has to say. So in this, you know, it says that the Big Bang has happened again and again and again and again and again. Yet somehow every time they think that this 1 in 10 to the 37th power, electrons and protons, happens every time. But that doesn't work. So, let's see if we can get to the next page. And then there's the other one, which is there's a universe factory, and the universe factory just, you know, says, here's a universe for you, and a universe for you, and a universe for you, and a universe for you, right? But once again, this would require something to design the universe factory. So they just, what they do is when they come up with new explanations to explain away God, all they do is they kick the ball back down the field a little further, because something still has to have caused that. So, because we know that we can't have an actual infinite number of things, right? Then that one is, are there not many highly unlikely things that happen which are not the result of design? Do things happen that are not a result of design? And he says, what this question seeks to demonstrate is that chance could result in a life-permitting universe, since there are many examples of highly unlikely events that are clearly the result of chance. After all, everything that happens is, in a certain sense, highly unlikely. When one considers the fact that the odds were against the birth of any one person on the planet, this becomes clear. Of all the random sperm cells, all the random eggs that could have met, you were the happy and highly unlikely result of exactly the sperm and egg that joined, right? Could have been any other one, and you'd be somebody completely different because the DNA would be completely different. Well, partially different, at least, right? So we see that they'll point at this and say, see, chance, you're here by chance. And they, once again, try to use this to explain away God.
Yes.
And he he debated a guy named Daniel Alvarez on God's existence in 2010. And he said that the winner of a nationwide lottery might feel as though there must have been some design in his fortunate success, right? But is there design in a lottery win? No, it's a matter of
No.
chance, and it's just you happen to select the same numbers that were pulled. When 200 million people take a lottery ticket, the chances are high that somebody's going to pull the right numbers, right? But we're not referring to the unlikely complexity. That's what I'm trying to get at here, right? It's not just the unlikelihood. It's that we see design, right? If we were walking along a beach and on the shore of the beach, we saw God is alive, written in the sand, right? Will we believe that the waves did that?
No.
No. We'd look,
Somebody did it.
hey, somebody else was here that's a follower of God.
Yeah.
We would understand that was done by intelligence. Somebody with intelligence put the letters together and made a word on the beach, made multiple words on the beach. We understand that has design to it, design implications, and that thus it has a designer. And that's really what this argument is about, right? Christopher Hitchens, who called himself an anti-theist, not an atheist, an anti-theist, he would say, of the other bodies in our solar systems alone, the rest are either far too cold to support anything recognizable as life, or far too hot. The same, as it happens, is true of our own blue and rounded planetary home, where heat contends with cold to make large tracts of it into useless wasteland, and where we have come to learn that we live and have always lived on a climatic knife edge. Meanwhile, the sun is getting ready to explode and devour its dependent planets like some jealous chief or tribal deity. Some design, right? He talks about the fact that, hey, there's going to be a heat death at the end, so it's poorly designed. If you buy a toy for your kids or your grandkids, you take it home, they play with it for 5 minutes and it breaks. That's poorly designed.
Yes.
Does that mean that nobody designed it?
No, somebody did.
Somebody still designed it. Even if it's bad, somebody still designed it.
Yes.
That's an easy answer to his statement there, is that just because it's poorly done doesn't mean it's not designed. Now, I would beg to differ with him that this is completely perfectly designed, because God designed it in such a way as to make it habitable by human beings. Seems like he picked the perfect place for it. All of it's perfect, right? So if you just call it the design argument, right, or things from order, then you don't really need to have the whole highfalutin ontological argument or teleological argument, right? Or just remember, hey, it's the argument from design. We don't need to have like high end degrees. Don't have to remember all the numbers. All we got to remember is that the world appears to be designed. Most people will not disagree with that statement. It at least appears to be designed, right? And if it appears to be designed, there are only 3 options. It needed to be that way, it came that way by chance, or it is designed, right? We understand that scientists say that it doesn't need to be the way that it is. Scientists also say that it's highly unlikely. I don't think I'll ever forget the dime stacked to the moon 10 times on North America. You know, not likely to forget that one. And paint one red and pick it out. Hey,
Oh,
there
Lord.
are chances of just one thing being okay. Right? So it should be kind of obvious that it didn't have to be that way, and that it also isn't by chance. For the same reason that if a tornado goes through a junkyard, we're not going to end up with a Boeing 747, right? Highly unlikely. So unlikely that we would call it another word, impossible, right? So, oh no, my Kindle reader just shut down. I will stop the share. So what he really is getting at with all of this, is that, there is design to the world. And all of the design to the world is easily seen through the lens of, exactly what the way God intended it, right? Like Romans 1:20 says, right, that God designed it, and we can see this design. It's very easy to see design and to know that design means a designer. And if design means a designer, then we have to name that designer, right? We've already seen that there is a cause to the beginning of the universe. Now we're seeing that there's design in the universe, or an order to it, and that through this order, we can see that there is a necessity for a designer. Right?
Yes.
We're standing in the time in history of the world in which good science has revealed itself to be quite hospitable to atheism. Right? They found cosmic background radiation, CBR, in the 1960s to atheists, Penzias and Wilson. And Penzias, Arno Penzias, they won a Nobel Prize for it. And he said, I can no longer allow myself to believe that this is just mystical and it just happened. The Big Bang creates great problems in atheism because it means there is a beginning. And out of all of the chaos of the Big Bang, things had to fall into just the right order for us to be able, for the universe to permit life, right? The two alternatives, they do fail. So there's reason to believe that the universe simply had to be life permitting. Right? And if it is life permitting, the data that's contained there demonstrates that it's not just by chance. It's not by physical necessity, but it is because there is a designer, and we know that that designer is God. Now, like I was saying last week, right? These aren't meant to be arguments that will bring you straight from an atheist to a God-loving, God-fearing Christian, right? A lot of atheists, you have to slowly work your way, right? Because once you get them from atheism to at least saying, I just don't know, right? You keep building up on who God is. And once you've built up on who God is, then you show them, okay, now I'm going to explain to you exactly who God is, because we're going to see that historically, God raised Jesus from the dead. And that's something we can see without ever opening the Bible.
Yes.
And that's kind of the way we're going to go with that. So we see that, physical necessity doesn't work, right? Does not work to explain all of the order in the universe. Chance doesn't work. The only thing that works is design. And, there are some people who will, they'll miss, the design argument with regard to it all. And they'll state that I don't need to believe in this design argument. I can do with just having, with just having, evolution, or I can do with just having it be, a matter of chance that it all fell in, and they'll close themselves off to the truth, right? Because we know that, there will come a time when men will not lend their ears to sound doctrine, but instead will reach out to teachers who, will,
Cheers.
yeah, itching ears, right? They'll go to itching
Mhm.
to where their itching ears want to, right? So we don't. So that's why no one argument is ever going to be, well, I can't say ever, but for the most part, with people who have been indoctrinated in our school systems or what have you, one argument may not be enough. And that's why, in this book, we're going to go through three, plus we're going to talk about, our own experiences being proof enough.
Yes.
For us, if not, hey, I was there when this happened. I remember this person getting healed completely, things like that. And that's more of what we're going to talk about when we get, not next week. Next week, we're going to talk about morality and how you can't have morality without God, and how that doesn't mean that a person without Jesus in their life can't be a moral person. It means that you have to have something to found morality on. But we'll get into that one next week. And then the following week, we'll talk about experience. And that'll take us through the core part of core facts. And then we'll get into the facts half of it. And we'll talk about the resurrection of Jesus. So yeah, that's kind of the plan forward. So anybody got any questions, anything you want to discuss further, more in depth? Because we've got, all the time we need. So.
Well, it is not kicking us off early anymore?
No, I went ahead and paid the $10 a month to make it unlimited, because sometimes it won't work right if I don't do it, and it allows us to have that question and answer time at the end too, which we were missing. We'd get cut off in the middle of it or whatever. So I figured it's kind of worth it to do it, and that way we can put out the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you for the book. It really is going to be very helpful to follow up. And thank you for explaining it so well, that one argument will not sometimes persuade an atheist. And then it's good that we know the different arguments, and just to remember core facts. It's easy as an acronym to remember in order to understand each different argument. So now I can really follow you better, because it's remember I was asking you for something like this where it's kind of laid out, and this definitely is that outline, which is helping me to understand.
Your question on that led me to reach out to Braxton and say, hey, can I borrow your book for this? Because I think it's one of the best apologetics books that I've ever read. And, I guess I'm probably a little biased since he was my dissertation advisor and a friend, but, it's,
yeah, this is great.
I think it's useful.
Yep, very useful. Yep, you've explained it well. I mean, as a lay person, we understand it. We don't know a lot of the technical science part of it, but we understand that whatever that is, those possibilities are little to zero, whatever those examples were.
Exactly. Just remember, dimes, North America to the moon, one red.
Wow, impossible.
Did not find that one.
Good luck.
Am I?
So, any questions?
Pastor, I was just looking before you even read to that part. I was reading it where it mentioned, it talk about in the casino, it was a gambling or cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does gambling and casino, my God, have anything to do with God creative work?
Well, what he's getting at when he's talking about that is we understand, like human beings understand that that if you go into a casino, the odds are always in the house's favor.
Mhm.
Now you've got to stack the house even further. And then, you know, it's saying that you go in every single time, the odds are, you know, 100 to 1, and you have to go in every day for, you know, like 100 straight years, something like that, and win every single time.
Oh, okay.
So that's what he's really getting at there.
Okay.
He's talking about odds, and
Yeah,
odds are
okay.
most frequently
Okay.
seen in gambling
Yeah.
scenarios. So
Thank you, Pastor Mark.
absolutely. Anything else? All right, well, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the evidence that we see for you in everything, God, that we can see the changing of the colors of the leaves, and we can understand that you are God and that you made them to work that way. God, I just thank you for showing us more and more each and every day who you are in ways that we can know you. And God, I just thank you and praise you for all that you're doing in this study and in this time together. And God, I pray that you would continue to raise up people who know this and who are interested and who are ready to take the fight back, God, and aren't just gonna to sit there and get and be defeated, but to actually take the fight back and say, no, God is the winner. God is the one who he designed it all, because we do know that you win in the end. God, help us to use this to save some by snatching them out of the fire, and to use these things to have mercy on others. God, I thank you for giving us this time and this ability, and the ability to talk to other people, God, in and through everything. God, I thank you and praise you for everything you're doing here. I pray all of this in your
Amen.
son Jesus' name. Amen.